Welcome back now. We have Paul and Rick, a couple authors with us today. Thanks for coming by.
Good to be
Thanks
here.
for having us.
It's a big night for you all. Your book just came out 2 days ago. Congratulations. It's called Blood in the Tracks, the Minnesota musicians behind Dylan's masterpiece. So I'm excited to hear about this, but let's start with this question. Are you both Bob Dylan fans?
All my
yeah,
life.
Yeah, pretty much all my life since I was a early teenager. And what's cool about working with Rick on this book, I'm from the Iron Range.
Oh, yes.
And he's from Duluth, so it was geographically a perfect karmic balance situation.
Absolutely.
In 1965, my older brother brought home 2 Bob Dylan albums, and I had maybe heard a song or 2 of his on the radio, but the albums were bringing it all back home and another side of Bob Dylan.
Okay.
And I was absolutely smitten by this guy. He changed my life, he changed music, and I've just always been fascinated with him ever since.
That's really neat. So what made you want to explore his music in a book like this?
Well, this was a particular record called Blood on the Tracks, which was his 15th record, probably one of his best-selling records, and one of his most popular among fans and critics alike. 5 of the songs out of the 10 on the record were recorded in Minneapolis over 2 nights in December 1974.
Yeah.
The 6 musicians that took part in it never got credit for it because Dylan recorded the first part of the record in September, re-recorded some of the songs again, and by the time the record came out, the covers were already done. So the Minnesota musicians never got credit until 2018 when finally the 6th record, More Blood, More Tracks, came out a box set from both those sessions.
Oh my goodness. So that explores, the book explores that particular story, those 2 nights?
Those musicians, yes, for sure. But then what interested us most about the book was telling the story of those musicians before, then during, and then afterwards. Because, well, you can talk about how people looked at the anonymous musicians, right?
Yeah.
When Dylan recorded the original 10 tracks for the album, he had brought in some session musicians in New York, and they recorded with Phil Ramone, who was considered to be one of the top engineers in the business. They were recording in the studio in New York where Bob had recorded his first 6 albums. And the thinking was, well, how do you improve on this? I mean, you know, this is Bob Dylan, 10 original songs, you know, studio musicians. But he thought that there was something missing. And when he recorded with musicians that basically nobody outside of Minnesota had ever heard of, the national perception was, what's he doing here? And who are these guys? And people really didn't have a chance to find out until this box set came out in 2018.
Oh, I love the story behind the story. You know, the story behind the album. And
well, they were all such incredible musicians.
Yeah.
And they're all still working for the most part.
Okay.
And very interesting lives. We take an unvarnished look at it. We talk about the ups and downs of all those guys were as professionals. Some had more even-keeled lives, some had some real down times and bounced back. So it's a real look at life of a working musician.
Yeah.
And I think the big point that we tried to make, and I believe we did make in the book, is that these guys brought something to the project that just wasn't there beforehand. And the title Blood in the Tracks is sort of a reference to that. These are Minnesotans essentially bringing something out of a fellow Minnesotan that the New York guys just somehow or another hadn't been able to do. So there's actual, you know, sort of DNA going on here that really worked.
That's really special. So what's going on tonight?
Zenith Bookstore on the West End, right across from the West Theater. We are going to have a book signing from 7 p.m. to 8:30, of course, open to the public. We're going to do a Q&A and perhaps read from the book, meet some people, and do some signing. I moved to Duluth 2 years ago, so this is, and I live in Lincoln Park, so I could walk to the bookstore, but it's a big deal for me. And Rick, too, as coming home as a Duluth native, I believe.
Absolutely. Like I said on Twitter today, it's so good to be back in Duluth, and Duluth rocks.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a fun night. Good luck. Hopefully we'll get some people out there for you. And I assume they'll have copies of the books there, right?
Yeah, and if they can't make it tonight, I play at the Blackwater Lounge on Wednesdays from 6 to 8. And so I'll always have a few copies that people can purchase right on the bandstand. And I'll sign them right there.
Or bring their book down and have you sign it. if
I
they've
can
already
do
bought
that
one.
too.
There you go. Make yourself available.
Of
Well, thanks for
course.
squeezing us in today.
Thank you for having
It
me.
was great to hear about this.